Hi folks, and welcome back to Travels with Paddles. My name's James, and today I have a fantastic paddle for you. It's the Circumnavigation of Portsea Island. Here's a map of the route, and total distance was 16.1 miles. Hannah and I are launching in the tandem here from Ferry Point on Hayling Island, but we're going to paddle across to Eastney to rejoin the rest of our club, which is Portsmouth Canoe Club. The Circumnavigation of Portsea is a bit of a special paddle for me. I've tried organising it 3 times in the past, and each time the weather was abominable and we had to cancel. So when the paddle showed up on the club calendar, it was a must for Hannah and I to do. After a safety briefing, we're into our boats and we're off. The plan is that we're going to paddle around Portsea in an anti-clockwise direction, going up the eastern side of the island as the tide rises, and then descending down the western side as the tide falls. Like that, we get tidal assistance all the way round. It's a similar plan to how we often paddle round Hayling. However, there is a catch here. There are multiple bridges at the north end of Portsea which link the island with the mainland. As you'll see later in the video, some of these are quite low. You need to time your departure from Eastney correctly so that there's sufficient water to paddle around the top of the island, but not so much water that you can't paddle under the bridges. A decent rule of thumb is to set off around 2 to 3 hours before high water at Portsmouth. Speaking of bridges, here's our first one. It's the Eastern Road Bridge. No problems passing under this one. A short distance later and we reach the second, which is the railway bridge. A little bit tighter on this one. I've really got to lean over to make sure I don't hit the camera mounted on my helmet. Right now, we're paddling along the northern edge of Portsea alongside the A27 dual carriageway. We've then got a pair of bridges in quick succession for Portsbridge roundabout. You can really see now that if the tide was much higher, it would be quite a struggle to get under, and it would be a long portage to go round with a busy road over the top. If you've made it to here, then all the tricky bridges are done. There's one more bridge, but it's very high for the M275. As Portsbridge Creek starts to widen out into Portsmouth Harbour, you pass this unusual sculpture called the Jack. I believe it's related to a game that sailors used to play. This big old crane is often referred to by locals as the Portsmouth Dinosaur. Now, at this stage, once you're into the top end of Portsmouth Harbour, you can turn left and head south immediately towards Whale Island. However, here we made a detour to have a break at Portsea Castle first. You can see it's quite a popular trip with the other club members too. We also got to meet up briefly with some of our colleagues from Chichester Canoe Club. Back on the water, and now we are heading for Whale Island. Whale Island is home to HMS Excellent, which is the oldest shore-based training establishment in the Royal Navy. This also means that you can't land on Whale Island, it's all fenced off. As you come round the eastern corner of the island, this is where the scenery really starts to get interesting. Portsmouth Harbour is the home of the Royal Navy, and there are often many ships docked here. We're passing HMS Bristol, a Type 82 destroyer that was officially decommissioned in 2020. She currently sits on the disposal reserve list, although there is a campaign to try and turn her into a museum ship. Because she's no longer officially a combat ship, we can get right up close. This isn't the case for all the other ships in the harbour, which are well guarded. I believe that here we have a frigate on the left and a destroyer on the right. It's worth noting that if you do want to do this paddle, you should get in touch with Portsmouth Harbour Master well in advance. You can do this by email or by telephone, and you should let them know how many people are paddling, what your plan is, and when you're going to be doing it. They'll also expect you to radio in on VHF as you reach the top of the harbour to let them know that you're coming down. Because of all the warships moored on the eastern side of the harbour, we're currently crossing to the western side to make our way down the small boats channel. Here's one of the Royal Navy's newest and most powerful ships. It's a Queen Elizabeth class carrier. It's either the Queen Elizabeth or the Prince of Wales. I honestly can't tell. If you can, please let me know in the comments. In the centre of the image with the three masts we have HMS Warrior, a main exhibit of the Historic Dockyards Museum, which also features Nelson's HMS Victory. We have the Spinnaker Tower, and here's the Gosport passenger ferry, which shuttles between Portsmouth on the east and Gosport on the west. Somewhere in Haslar Marina you should be able to see HMS Alliance, part of the Submarine Museum. We're just making our way along the small boats channel towards the harbour entrance, and this is where things can get a little bit interesting. The harbour entrance is really quite narrow, and on the ebb tide the flow rate can reach around 4 knots. The prevailing wind is from the southwest, which means you have all the ingredients for generating a wind on tide condition, resulting in some fairly large bumps. From a safety perspective, Portsmouth Harbour is also home to many large commercial ships. Therefore, I wouldn't recommend attempting this paddle unless you are a competent, experienced paddler. And I think going with a group is pretty much essential. So, we've left the harbour entrance and we're now on the western side of the channel, but we need to get to the eastern side of the channel. However, you mustn't cross immediately. You need to continue down the small boats channel until you reach a red marker buoy named 4 Bar. This marks the end of the channel, and from there you can cross to Southsea. While we're paddling towards 4 Bar, I'll let you enjoy the bumps. Right, so here's 4 Bar, which means we're clear to make our crossing attempt. We need to time it so we don't interfere with any traffic. An easy target to aim for is the HMS Shannon Memorial, just south of the Hovercraft terminal. After some solid paddling, we're going to get out here for a breather and also for a bite to eat. Speaking of the hovercraft, here it comes. Apparently this is the only year-round passenger hovercraft service now in the world. If you haven't yet had a chance to ride in it, I strongly recommend it. It's brilliant fun. With everyone fed and watered, it's time to get back into the boats for the final leg back to Eastney. I think this is one of the Navy's offshore patrol vessels. Making our way round Southsea, we come to South Parade Pier. We had some really impressive cloud formations. It's now just a straight line paddle past Fort Cumberland until we reach the entrance to Langstone Harbour. Hannah and I are going to say goodbye to our friends from Portsmouth as they stop at Eastney, and then we're going to cross over to Hayling. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the paddle. There's lots to see on this one, so I hope I've given you a bit of a guided tour of Portsea. Please do like and subscribe, and until next time, stay safe on the water.